Okay, so today we're diving into a story that's pretty unique. It's about Haru Urara, a racehorse who got famous, incredibly famous, not for winning races, but for losing them, a lot of them.
Yeah, she was dubbed the star of the losers. It's this amazing paradox.
Exactly, and that's what we want to explore.
And it's fascinating because this story, it goes way beyond just horse racing, doesn't it? It's really about how a certain kind of narrative can just grab a whole nation. And it touches on perseverance, obviously, but also maybe how we even define success. It's kind of blurry.
Yeah, success redefined. I like that.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to really unpack the story of Haru Urara, look at the sources, figure out why she had such an enduring impact, and maybe uncover some surprising things along the way.
And maybe think about what her story means for, for you, for how you see perseverance in your own life.
Right. So let's start at the very beginning. Haru Urara. She was born February 27, 1996. Shinoda Farm up in Hokkaido.
And the sources say right from the start she was small, timid even.
Yeah, not exactly what you'd picture for a racehorse maybe. And when it came time for auction.
No takers.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to buy her. So Shinoda Farm kept her.
And they sent her down to Kochi Racecourse and trusted her to a trainer named Dai Muneshi.
And Muneshi, well, he really had his work cut out for him. The descriptions are pretty stark, like a very difficult horse to handle.
Difficult how?
Well, apparently she'd thrash around when they tried to put the saddle on. If they tightened the girth, she'd just fall down.
Wow.
Yeah. And just refuse to move for exercise. Just stubborn or maybe scared.
So how did he even get her racing?
Patience. Lots of patience. Muneshi just gradually, very slowly, got her used to it all. And he appointed Fujiwara Kensuke as her stable hand.
Her specific handler.
Yeah, and apparently Haru Urara got really attached to him. It sounds like that bond was, pretty crucial.
Okay, so she finally makes it to the track. Her debut was November 17, 1998, Kochi Racecourse.
And she lost. Field of 5, finished last. And that was the start of it?
Sure. The streak. But what's amazing is her consistency, right? Racing like 20 times a year.
Almost unheard of. And she only missed one race. Apparently, due to hoof disease, she just kept showing up.
Why race her so much if she wasn't winning? Was it just keeping her busy?
It was largely financial, actually. The sources break it down. She'd get about 60,000 yen per race.
Okay.
So over a year, maybe 1.2 million yen. But the owner fees, the cost of keeping her, was around 1.3 to 1.4 million yen annually.
So she was barely breaking even or even losing money.
Pretty much. Muneshi apparently said he'd have had to consider retiring her if she raced less than, say, 15 times a year.
Oh, okay.
And the only reason this was even feasible was because Kochi Racecourse had, the cheapest fees in Japan. That's what allowed this long, busy career.
And she pushed through physical issues, too.
Yeah. Things like ant fungus, rotted hooves,
yeah,
which sound awful, really painful stuff for a horse. But she kept running. Incredible resilience.
So this hardworking, losing horse, things nearly changed in 2003, right? Shinoda Farm wanted to retire her.
Yeah, the original breeders, they planned to retire her, maybe turn her into a riding horse, a quieter life.
But Muneshi stepped in.
He did. He argued she wasn't really suited for riding because of that timid nature. He felt she just needed to run.
He wanted to keep her racing.
Exactly. He felt strongly, let her run while she can. So he actually asked someone else, Takao Yokoyama, to take over ownership, just to ensure her racing career could continue.
That's quite a commitment from a trainer.
It really speaks to his connection with her, I think.
Yeah.
And that decision, well, it changed everything.
Because that's when the boom started, summer of 2003.
Right around then. Suddenly, this losing streak wasn't just a local Kochi thing. It became huge nationally.
And it started with the racecourse announcer.
Koji Ashiguchi, yeah. Apparently, he had this habit of tracking horses on long losing streaks. And when Haru Urara hit 60 losses.
She got on his radar.
Big time. And he had this idea. He thought, hey, maybe we can market her. Like a Japanese version of Zippy Chippy, that American horse famous for losing.
Why, though? Just as a gimmick.
It was more desperate than that, maybe. Kochi horse racing was really struggling financially, facing a crisis of closure, as one source put it. Hashiguchi saw her as a potential lifeline.
A way to get people interested.
A unique angle. And, it worked.
How did it spread so fast?
Well, a local paper, the Kochi Shimbun, reporter Ken Ishii, picked it up first. June 13th, 2003. Headline was something like, let's win at least once.
Sketchy.
Then the PR officer for the Racing Association, Masashi Yoshida, sent out press materials. And boom, national papers like Minichi Shimbun covered it. Fuji TV featured her prominently.
Wow.
The Tokyo Shimbun called her things like a rival horse in the restructuring era, a star of the underdogs. The narrative just clicked.
And the public reaction was unusual. People buying betting tickets for good luck.
Yeah, it's totally counterintuitive. People bought her tickets hoping it would prevent them from getting laid off or act as a charm for, like, traffic safety.
Because she wouldn't hit the jackpot, so maybe their luck would be better elsewhere.
Something like that. It was this belief in her consistency, her just showing up, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
They even made amulets from her hair initially.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that got criticized quite rightly as potential animal cruelty. So they stopped that and switched to wooden votive plaques instead.
But not everyone was thrilled with this newfound fame. What about Muneshi, the trainer?
He had very mixed feelings. He said, 90% of people told me it's no good if you win. They wanted the losing streak to continue for the story.
But he wanted her to win.
Deep down, yeah. Especially once the reporters started showing up. He admitted he wanted it even more than before. But he wouldn't push her too hard. He was terrified she'd get injured. Winning wasn't worth that risk.
And the stable hand, Fujiwara?
Similar feelings. Kind of ambivalent that Haru Urara was the popular one instead of, the actual winning horses.
Mm-hmm.
But still, he wished she could win just once.
But the original breeders, Shinoda Farm, they were definitely not happy.
No, not at all. Shinoda Yoshihisa felt they were just being recognized for producing losers. He saw the whole boom as just hype to save Kochi Racecourse.
He sounds pretty bitter about it.
Yeah, he had a sharp quote, something like, "You can say anything as long as it doesn't cost you anything," aimed at the public's excitement. He felt it was superficial.
So this tension is building. Then comes December 14th, 2003. Her 100th consecutive loss.
The atmosphere must have been incredible. Over 5,000 people crammed into Kochi Racecourse. They hadn't seen crowds like that in years. About 120 reporters.
And the betting.
Huge. Just on Haru Urara, betting tickets hit over 3 million yen, a record for a single race there. They even had a ceremony afterwards, gave her a certificate, a carrot necklace.
The carrot necklace.
Yep. But Muneshi, after the race, was pretty blunt. He called her really weak, said as a professional she had no appeal, even though she always tried hard.
That's quite the contrast, the public adoration versus the professional assessment.
It really highlights the two different ways people were seeing her.
Okay, so the boom peaks even higher, right? March 2004, race number 106.
This was the big one. Take Yutaka, the superstar jockey of the JRA, the top league. He agreed to ride her.
Why would he do that? Ride a horse guaranteed to lose.
He apparently saw it as an interesting opportunity, a way to help out local horse racing, give Kochi a boost.
And the reaction to that news?
Unbelievable. Record crowd again, 13,000 people at Kochi, betting sales for just that one race, over 511 million yen.
Whoa.
And Haru Urara's tickets alone accounted for, get this, over 121 million yen. Merchandise sales hit 10 million yen. They had to restrict admission, set up special betting counters with waits up to 7 hours.
7 hours to bet on a horse they knew would lose.
That's the power of the phenomena.
So the race happens.
She finishes 10th out of 11. The streak continues.
But then Take Yutaka does something unexpected.
He does a winning run. The celebratory lap, usually only done by the winners. It was this huge symbolic gesture. And the TV broadcast peaked at almost a 20% audience share.
Incredible. And what about Take Yutaka himself? You mentioned he wasn't thrilled initially.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Just weeks before, he'd blogged about being honestly fed up with the abnormal fuss. He found it hard to understand why this non-winning horse got more attention than, top G1 winners. He felt it strayed from the essence of horse racing.
He was kind of disgusted by it.
Pretty much. But then, seeing those 13,000 people, the sheer joy and excitement, he said his anger just vanished. He had this moment of realizing, it's okay to have a star like this.
Like complete turnaround.
It seems so. Afterwards, he said, look, his core belief hadn't changed. The real fun is a strong horse winning strongly. But he acknowledged Haru Urara was a great horse for creating that frenzy, for moving so many fans.
Did he regret not winning on her?
He expressed regret for not giving her that taste of victory, yeah. But he called her definitely a star.
And Hashiguchi, the announcer who started it all, any regrets there?
He maintained his stance. The survival of Kochi Racecourse is everything. That was his goal. He apparently did feel bad for a long time about dragging Take into it.
But Take didn't see it that way later.
No. Take later told him he was grateful because Haru Urara brought new people totally outside racing, into the sport's orbit.
So even the losing streak record itself, She broke one, right?
Yeah, her 109th loss surpassed Grace Amber's 108. Though it's worth noting, these records for losing streaks, they get broken fairly often in Japan. Wasn't necessarily the longest ever.
Okay. But just as things seemed like they couldn't get any bigger, the story takes a controversial turn. The transfer.
Yeah, September 15, 2004, she's moved from Kochi to Nasu Training Farm in Tochigi Prefecture under a new owner, Anzai Miyoka.
Who got her for free?
Apparently so, from the previous owner, Yokoyama Takao, earlier that year. And this transfer, well, the accounts really differ dramatically.
What did Muneshi, the trainer, say happened?
Muneshi claimed there was ongoing conflict. Anzai wanted to rest her, get her strong enough to win one final retirement race. Muneshi wanted her to keep racing at Kochi, entertaining the fans.
Different philosophies.
Completely. Muneshi says on the day, Anzai just showed up with a horse trailer. He claims there was a big argument, like 2 hours back and forth.
He felt forced.
That's his account. He says Anzai told him it's up to the owner, and even threatened to call the police. He also mentioned the horse's official health book was still with him, highlighting how sudden it felt. He had to mail it later.
But Anzai's version is different.
Totally. She claimed there was an agreement with the Kochi racing manager for Haru Urara to go out to pasture, partly for a movie appearance. And she claimed Muneshi had basically said, do whatever you like, implying consent.
And Anzai's public reason for moving her.
She said she wanted to let him rest and let him win in good condition. She also claimed Muneshi was overworked, had too many ties, no time. And she made claims about blood tests in Tochigi, showing health problems, high white blood cells, liver issues.
Suggesting Kochi was running her down.
That was the implication, that she needed medium to long-term treatment.
But was that true? Were there counterclaims?
There were. A fan group later claimed they had testimony from the vet who did the tests. And according to them, after a second test, the vet actually suggested Haru Urara was healthy and should be returned to Kochi.
So, conflicting stories about her health, too.
Definitely raises questions about the real motives there.
And the reporter, Ken Ishii, who first wrote about her, he was critical of Anzai.
Very critical. He pointed out Anzai had applied for the Haru Urara trademark before the transfer, sent legal letters about merchandise rights, and started soliciting donations for owner members without being transparent about finances.
He saw it as opportunistic.
His quote is pretty blunt. He basically said Muneshi and the stable hands did the hard work making this flower bloom on a dead tree, that Anzai gets the horse for free, makes money off the rights, and takes her away, claiming Kochi was overworking her. He said, it's only natural to think that this is a bit much, and called for financial transparency.
So, a really messy situation. What happened next? Did she ever race again?
No. There was apparently an agreement in January 2005 for Muneshi to check her health, bring her back to Kochi for a final retirement race in March.
But it didn't happen.
Anzai announced a postponement in February, citing delayed recovery. She never raced again, officially removed from the registry in October 2006.
And those other projects Anzai mentioned, the one Victory project, the fund.
Neither seemed to actually materialize. Lots of plans announced, but not much follow-through, it seems.
And the trainer at the farm she was transferred to, Hirota, he wasn't happy either.
No, he was quite disappointed. He felt he'd actually gotten her into shape where she could have won back at Kochi. But then the owner suddenly took her away. He lamented she was treated like a pet for the convenience of others.
Wow. That echoes some of the earlier criticisms.
It does. So her final record stands. 113 races, 0 wins, though she did get 5 seconds and 7/3 along the way.
Not always last, then.
No, definitely not. She had some close calls.
So what happened after the racing stopped? Post-retirement life?
It was varied. Anzai started a horse therapy school and an NPO, the Let's Go Home Club, supposedly promoting retired racehorse therapy. But it eventually dissolved.
Was she actually doing therapy?
It sounds minimal. One official commented that people mostly just saw and touched Haru Urara.
Then there were breeding plans with famous stallions.
Yeah, summer 2009, there was talk of breeding her with huge names like Deep Impact. That's a 9 million yen stud fee we're talking about.
Serious money.
Anzai even mentioned seeking donations for it. But ultimately, none of it happened. Haru Urara never became a mother. And for years, nobody really knew where she was or even if she was okay.
She just disappeared from public view.
Pretty much, which is startling given her fame.
Until she turned up at another farm.
Right. Around late 2012, early 2013, Anzai entrusted her to Martha Farm in Chiba. But after about 6 months, the payments for her keep stopped. Anzai stopped visiting.
She was abandoned.
Essentially, yes. Ownership was formally abandoned and transferred to Martha Farm in February 2014. Thankfully, a fan group, the Haru Urara Association, stepped up to support her care there.
Thank goodness for the fans. So she's safe now.
Yes. And incredibly, her story just keeps going. In 2018, she was on a traffic safety poster for the local police. Got another certificate and 600 kilos of carrots.
Still getting carrots.
Still getting carrots. And then, the really big recent twist. The smartphone game, Umamusume, Pretty Derby.
The horse girl game.
Exactly. It features a character based on Haru Urara. And since that game launched in 2021, Martha Farm has seen a huge surge in visitors coming to see the real Haru Urara.
Wow. From losing streak star to controversy, near obscurity, and now a video game icon.
Her legacy just finds new ways to connect with people.
So let's pull back a bit. What does this whole incredible, complicated story mean for us, for you listening, maybe navigating your own wins and losses?
It raises some really big questions, I think.
Like what?
Well, first, that paradox we started with. Failure as success. Why did we, as a society, latch on to a horse famous for losing? What does that say about what we actually value, maybe beyond just, the scoreboard?
Right, just trying hard count.
And that leads to the second point, redefining value. Take Yutaka called her a great horse. Was she? Her record says no, but her impact says maybe yes. It challenges how we measure success. Is it just results, or is persistence, effort, showing up? Is that valuable in itself?
The power of the story itself seems huge, too.
Absolutely. That's the third thing. How did a losing streak become this powerful narrative? A symbol of resilience, a good luck charm, even an economic engine for a while. It shows how much we invest in stories, how they shape meaning.
But there's a darker side, too, with the transfer.
For sure. Fourth point, the ethical questions. Ownership, exploitation, the welfare of the animal caught in the middle of human ambitions, media hype, financial dealings. Her story really forces you to think about that.
And finally, her enduring fame, even now with the game.
Yeah. Fifth, the shifting nature of celebrity, maybe. From newspapers to TV to obscurity, then a police poster, now a video game. It shows how legacies can survive and find new audiences in totally unexpected ways across decades.
So when you think about Haru Urara, what can you, listening right now, take away about perseverance, about finding purpose even when things don't go to plan, about what winning really means in your own life? We've really covered a lot here, from that timid little foal nobody wanted, through the massive boom, the controversies, the quiet years, and now this unexpected resurgence. It's quite a journey.
It really is. And maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. What does Haru Urara's enduring appeal tell us about our values? Why are we so ready, perhaps even eager, to celebrate someone or some horse who just keeps trying relentlessly, even without conventional success?
Yay.
Is there a part of us that finds real comfort, real inspiration in the star of the losers? A reminder that maybe, just maybe, showing up again and again, that itself is a kind of victory.